They always say never in Doctor Who, and yet sometimes the actors who leave the show swear they're done for good. No more time vortex, no more sonic screwdriver, no more stepping into the impossible blue box. But today, one of the most iconic faces in the Whoniverse just teased that maybe, just maybe, their story isn't over. The twist, they'll only return under one shocking condition. And the condition isn't what you think. It's not about money. It's not about screen time. It's not even about whether or not the BBC still owns the rights. This is something much stranger, much deeper, and far more personal. Because in a recent interview, this star, who once carried the weight of the TARDIS on their shoulders, hinted that the future of their return depends entirely on what happens behind the camera, not in front of it. Think about that for a second. They're not asking for a new companion or a dramatic multi-Doctor special. They're asking for something that cuts to the very heart of what Doctor Who is right now. But here's the real mystery. Why now? Why speak up after years of silence? Why tease a return only to tie it to a condition so bizarre that it almost feels like a warning shot fired directly at the BBC? And if this actor does return, under this one condition, what happens to Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor? What happens to Billie Piper's shocking regeneration twist? And what happens to the future of the entire franchise? Because fans are whispering something dangerous. That maybe, just maybe, this isn't just a tease. This is the beginning of a power shift inside Doctor Who. So who is the star shaking up the Whoniverse with one cryptic statement? It's none other than David Tennant. Yes, that David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, the 14th Doctor, the man who became the face of modern Doctor Who revival, the actor who literally pulled in millions of viewers every time his brown trench coat hit the screen. You'd think if anyone could stroll back into the TARDIS, it would be him. But Tennant has just thrown down a line in the sand. He revealed in a candid moment that he would only return to the show again if Doctor Who remains true to its heart. And that doesn't mean flashy CGI or Disney-sized budgets. His one condition is creative honesty. Tennant said he would never come back just for a hollow nostalgia trip or a ratings stunt. In other words, if the BBC just wants to cash in on his face again, he's out. That's huge. Because if you think about it, Tennant already came back once, recently, in the 60th anniversary specials, and fans loved it. But in his own words, that worked only because the scripts meant something. Because the stories weren't afraid to go deep, to break rules, to tug at emotions in a way that only Doctor Who can. Without that, he claims the role is dead to him. But here's where things get wild. That condition isn't just about Tennant's personal standards, it's a not so subtle critique of the franchise's current struggles. Look around, ratings are dropping. Disney has pulled back from its deal. Ncuti Gatwa's era is still trying to find its footing after the shocking regeneration twist into Billie Piper. And the fandom is split down the middle about whether the show is still Doctor Who or just a brand name. Tennant's words feel less like a tease and more like a warning. Almost as if he's saying, fix the soul of the show, or it doesn't matter how many doctors you bring back. And here's the kicker. He's not the only one. Other former stars have hinted at similar conditions, whether it's Jodie Whittaker talking about representation needing to feel authentic, or Peter Capaldi insisting he won't come back for cameos unless there's a real story reason. This makes you wonder, is Tennant just speaking for himself? Or is he quietly voicing what every Doctor Who alum has been thinking, but didn't dare say out loud? Because if this is a united front, the BBC isn't just facing a casting choice, it's facing an ultimatum. So, what happens if the BBC ignores Tennant's condition? Here's the uncomfortable truth: the franchise could collapse under its own weight. Because if the BBC tries to drag Doctor Who forward on brand recognition alone, parading old faces, pushing half-baked spin-offs, and leaning on Disney-sized marketing without the storytelling backbone, the actors won't come, the fans won't stay, and suddenly the show isn't a cultural juggernaut anymore. It's a hollow shell. That's why Tennant's warning feels so sharp. He's not just saying, I'll only return if the script is good. He's essentially saying, if you want the stars who built this legacy to stand with you, then you must protect the integrity of the story. Now, let's imagine the alternative. What if the BBC listens? What if they bring Tennant or any returning legend back under that condition, not for cheap nostalgia, but for something bold, risky, and emotional? That could save the show. That could remind audiences of why they fell in love with Doctor Who in the first place, because it wasn't safe television. It was strange, imaginative, heartbreaking, and hopeful. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Tennant's condition might directly shape the future casting of the show. Rumors suggest the BBC is already planning ahead for the next Doctor after Ncuti Gatwa. If they're smart, they won't just look for a recognizable face, they'll look for someone who demands stories with weight. Someone who, like Tennant, won't allow the show to coast on spectacle. Because think about it, if Tennant, Capaldi, Whittaker, and others all hold the same standard, then the next Doctor isn't just about who plays the part. It's about who forces the BBC to treat the role with respect. And that brings us to the most unsettling question of all. What if Tennant's words weren't just a condition for his return, but a prophecy for the show's survival? What if he knows that without soul, without heart, without risk, Doctor Who is already dead, no matter how many doctors it cycles through? The BBC has confirmed the series is returning. Spin-offs are on the horizon. But the cost of ignoring this warning could be the death of Doctor Who as we know it. So maybe Tennant's tease isn't